It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with my co-host,
Barnet Bain. It's good to see you all today. It's nice to see you, Freeman. It's good to see you, Spence. Very nice to see you.
So good. We always do that when Spence is here. We get all excited.
We get excited. It's because, we feel safe and seen and secure, and that we know that the board is going to be manned to the hilt. It's going to be manned by a man.
Yeah, this will be a well-engineered show.
This is going to be a beautifully engineered show, and so we salute you. We who are about to broadcast salute you.
He doesn't get out much.
No.
All right.
We get out, fortunately, more than Spence.
No, Spence is just on a cruise.
He's always out. That's why we never see him. How was the cruise, by the way? Never mind, tell us later. We have with us as well a guest, and we usually wait before we introduce our guests, but I'm going to break form because
why not?
Spence is in the room, and Spence is in the house, and so it's all new.
We're doing it different today.
Today we're doing it different.
Go, break form, man.
We have our very, very dear friend, Zhena Muzyka.
God, you say my name right.
Isn't it fantastic?
I
couldn't wait to introduce you because I wanted to say your name.
Thank you.
And now that I managed to get it right, I feel so very, very good about myself. We will go more deeply into the introduction later, but I wanted to bring you into this conversation because usually Freeman and I start every show and we ramble and roll a little bit, and we didn't want you to feel that you
left
were
out.
Left out and forgotten.
Because I'm the only girl in the studio?
Well, we're sensitive men.
You're in tune with your feminine nature.
We work it. So how was your week?
Nice. How was yours?
Well, I finished an enormous project.
Yes.
Enormous project that I had been writing for the better part of 9 months. And so I feel like very similar to how I felt in middle school when you got out for summer vacation.
Yes. Exhilaration. Exhaustion and exhilaration.
Yeah.
So I talked to you right after you were finished, and you clearly were in a kind of place of release, and yet at the same time very excited. So that's thrilling.
And I'm going to Alaska in the morning.
You're going fishing.
I'm going fishing.
And with a special sort of eye towards the unfolding and the miraculous.
That's an interesting segue.
It
will be a miracle if I catch fish. Is that what you're
That's what I'm implying.
Are you inferring?
No. Take pictures.
Am I to infer?
So let me say something about this.
Yeah.
I won't leave you to explain why I'm bringing this up.
That's a relief.
There is a spirit in an adventure. So go on an adventure.
The spirit of adventure.
Well, thank you. There's a couple of ships that have been called that, but I'm speaking of this in a slightly different context. There is a frequency.
Yes, there is.
In an adventure that is an inviting in of something. It's an inviting, right? Because if you try to direct the adventure, it won't be such an adventure, and it will always be a disappointment. But there is a spirit, a quality that you're invoking when one goes on an adventure, which is a kind of opening to possibility. And the theme for today's show is miracles. We want to talk about the inviting in of what's possible, because we brought you here, Zena, as our little miracle worker,
in order to make sense of the
we're hoping you can make sense of it.
I can see a lot of sense in it.
Yeah, but I think we brought you today, besides the fact that we adore you, but we brought you because you illustrate something. Your life illustrates something. There are these little leaps, and in some cases major leaps, that really are so defined by the choices you've made, right? I mean, it's a miracle, no?
It's all a miracle.
Yeah.
It's all a miracle. Being born, number one, is a miracle.
Yeah.
Understanding that I was born into a very different kind of family was a miracle. My family's Gypsy from the Ukraine. And as soon as they got here, they washed away their entire past because they didn't want anyone to find out, just in case. They got thrown back into a concentration camp. I mean, they were damaged cells and sweet hearts, and their faith was beautiful. So I had, a lot of inspiration growing up, seeing that they survived what they survived. So I became pretty much a scrappy girl who lived in the hood, who fought for the underdog and started fighting for, farm worker rights and pesticide free and cleaning up the beaches. Like by age 12, I was already an activist, and I saw it all as an adventure.
Yeah.
Well, I think this would be the time to give our listeners a little bit of background that they
Why
should
I'm
know
here.
why. Well, exactly who we are talking to, because you have so much to share, and it'll be when it's informed with a little sense of context,
Okay.
it is that much richer. So our dear friend Zena is a keynote speaker, a radio host in her own right, as well as a fabulously successful coach of entrepreneurs, and indeed a fabulously successful entrepreneur herself. She started Zena's Gypsy Tea, which for many of us is a staple and is available nationally wherever you look. Is that for you? No, that's for me. I didn't mean to have my wife call us on air, but since she's a friend of Zena's,
I love
we'll
Sandy.
cut her off and move on. So,
Well, yeah. So
Well played.
I started with $6 and a sick baby who needed several operations, and I walked literally up a mountaintop in Matilaha Canyon in Ojai, and
with a cart. You have
I didn't walk the cart
You
up
pushed
there.
that cart?
Well, I got up to the top of the mountain. I got on my knees and I said, God, what am I going to do? I have all these operations to pay for, and my back is up against the wall. I have no resources. So I had a vision of a gypsy tea party. I'd been writing a book about my gypsy grandparents. And I saw literally women drinking tea, belly dancers, tea leaf readers, and I saw a sense of community, kids running around and playing. And I thought, oh my God, if I can tie my herbal medicine education and background, which I thought was my hobby, into into making money with my gypsy heritage, like, I might actually have something here. So as I climbed down the mountain, fear, doubt, and all of that came in, and I told everybody my plan. Oh, I'm going to start a tea company. You know what happens with that, the naysayers. But I got together about $3,000, bought a tea cart, wheeled it into my girlfriend's antique store, put sage in a baby carrier, and started making blends off the tea cart. And I joke that I'm the overnight success that took 11 years, but now we're in almost 22,000 stores. And I coach other women on how to survive and thrive with mission-based businesses that are to change the world, because my business provides health care for the women in the tea fields, clean water systems, education for their children. And every single time I go, it's a miracle, because I see the impact of my business model actually working. So we are a people, planet, profit, triple bottom line business. And I'm taking it further now by starting a educational fund for used laptops. I'm taking about 15 over in October just to try out and get
over where?
Over to Sri Lanka. And I'm taking a tour of people. I've had a lot of people sign up to come with me. So if anyone's interested, they can go on my website. It's kind of cool.
Well, we're going to come back to the laptops and the tour. I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Many of our audience harbor aspirations, sometimes not so secretly.
Okay.
To make an adventurous move out into the world of the entrepreneur. And you alluded a moment ago to having a mission.
Yes.
To having a purpose.
It's my number one step to success.
So speak a little bit about that, about what is the importance and the relationship of identifying a mission and unfolding a dream.
I can only work, like when I'm choosing coachees, I only work with mission-driven entrepreneurs, because I'm not a transaction-driven entrepreneur. I'm a mission-driven entrepreneur. So I believe that when you're mission-driven, you're focused on service. So it goes beyond your ego. And then I believe that the universe works in your favor to put the wind in your sails to make it happen. I mean, we almost went bankrupt 7 times. It's a miracle my company is still in business. But angels arrived every single time we had something terrible happened, it was like I couldn't fail because these women in the tea fields who only make $1.35 a day needed me.
Yeah.
And their kids needed education. And so it was like, it wasn't about me, and it wasn't about, oh crap, my name, I'll be a failure if because my name's on the package. It was about me. I made a promise to these people that I was always going to pay a fair trade wage. I was always going to help them with education. I was always going to fulfill my mission. And that is what drives me into 14-hour days. You can't be motivated by money. You can hire people who are motivated by money. Those are the transaction people. You must be motivated by a mission. And once you are, you cannot fail.
If you're going to live in my world.
If you're going to live in my world.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because what I love about what you're saying is you made up your own rules.
My standards.
Yeah, but it's more than standards. It's also, because look, this is incredible faith. It is, again, I started this by saying all the little leaps and some of the big ones. One, of course, made on a mountain to say, I'm willing to give myself to this fully, and believing that your universe would meet you there, and it did. And I think, this speaks to something, a thread, that is so important, because so many people, their sense of what's possible has been diminished to such a degree, right? They can't imagine. They've got these same kind of wantings and yearnings that you have, but they don't have a way to express it.
Nor a way to marry up the longing and the yearning, the sense of vision, the sense of dreaming, to marry that up with what we had our friend Chip Conley on a few weeks ago, what he calls a calling. As opposed to, I know you're also very, very friendly with Chip. Calling as opposed to.
My book is called Life by the Cup, and the first chapter is called A Cup of Calling, because it is what your dharma is irrefutable. It is what nature made you to do, and your dharma is your calling. And my dharma is to inspire other women and men to build businesses that change the world.
Perfect.
That shifts a job into a calling.
There is no job for me. If it's a job, I'll walk.
Yeah. So I don't want to lose this moment in time, and this is a bit of a risk, Barnet. But I believe you're going to stay with us on this, because this is an ongoing conversation. What happens for a lot of people is and we talked about this last week. We've talked about this a lot. Is where all of this passion is projected onto a form, and the form can't hold it, because the form isn't supposed to hold it. In other words, the thing that they point to and say, "Okay, that's going to be it." It can't hold it. It's not the thing that's important. It's the qualities underneath the thing, so that the things can change and move and become whatever the heck they're going to be.
Well, my tea estate manager, who I believe is a modern-day Gandhi, he's the one who built the first biodynamic tea farm in the world. He is named Yana Sakram. He threw my wedding for me. He's the most holy man I know. And he always says, when love and skill work together, expect a miracle.
Yes.
And that's actually posted on wood plaques in the tea gardens, so that the tea pluckers can see it. But when love and skill work together, expect a miracle. So where I didn't have skill, I had persistence.
Yes.
And the form it took shifted and changed all the time. It still is.
Yeah.
I mean, I had many failing teas that I thought were that were going to be huge,
right,
and they failed. And so it's always, you're failing fast. You're failing with humor, hopefully. You're failing with grace. You're failing with your integrity. And then you learn by contrast, and you get closer and closer and closer to what that form is.
That's right.
And that form is, for me, it's not just a cup of tea. I never once sold a tin of tea. I sell hope.
That's delicious.
The form is constantly shifting and
adjusting,
because it follows
flavors.
the function. It follows your bottom line intention.
It does. And my CEO, who runs the tea company now, we're in partnership. He's more of a money guy, so he came in and we made so many miracles happen that we could have such a giving business and still stay in business. Because I have to give the money away. I have to build infrastructure for these tea workers. They make $1.35 a day, and I have to eradicate child labor and get those kids into school. Like, my mission is so visceral in my body. I had to find someone to help me make the business model work, because you can't just have a mission without the money.
Yeah.
Well, as you say, you have a mission, and when you have a mission and you are committed to it, you cannot fail. And we cannot fail to take a moment to pay a couple of bills or two, or we will be without a mission and without a platform.
We'll take a quick break.
We will be right back with our guest, Zena.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with Barnet, Bain, and our lovely guest, Zena. And before we went to break, Barnet, there was a piece that you wanted to pick up on.
Well, I'm very interested in the fair trade wage specifically piece of that is so much part and parcel of what your mission and what your zeal for service is about.
Absolutely.
I'd love you to unpack that a bit.
Okay. So fair trade was created in Germany, and it is a third-party certified process that's audited. And basically, a fair trade tea garden, the workers can't be exposed to harsh chemicals. So even if they're not certified organic, they can't be exposed to pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides. They have to make not only the living wage, but they have to have guaranteed education for their children, guaranteed maternity leave, no child labor, because a lot of them, they have to pluck 8 kilos of tea a day to make $1.35. It takes 2,000 plucks individually from a woman's hand to produce 1 kilo. So 16,000 times a day for 40 years of her career, she is plucking and adding 8 kilos into the basket that is balanced on her head. So what you have is you have a level of hard work that has to be equitable. We have to actually pay what this tea is worth. So women are moving into these fair trade tea estates. We're finding the best tea pluckers because they are making about $12.50 a day. They're guaranteed health care, guaranteed child care, guaranteed education, clean water systems. We're building solar housing that they actually get to own, because tea pluckers, when they retire, there's no place for them to go. There's no retirement homes. There's nothing. So we're building all these houses in this one estate in Sri Lanka, which is the model for hopefully all the other estates that we will impact through this model. And we're also biodynamic. So we feed the soil with other herbs and micronutrients so that the tea, not only is it healthy, but it's got added nutrients in it, so it's healthier. And what we found is the cancer rates are skyrocketing in conventional gardens because they're using a lot. They're using a lot. They spray the tea fields. And what happens is you pluck tea, you wither it, you dry it, you fire it, and you sort it, and then you drink it.
So how pervasive are these fair trade practices in the tea industry at large, and what is the impact
when I started, I was the first 100% fair trade tea company in the U.S.
Wow.
I committed to it the second I figured it out. And Sage had his final operation and had gotten a clean bill of health. I packed up my bags. I went over to meet everybody so that I could create a direct trade formula. Now, 95% of tea is sold on an auction system. So if, say, one country floods the system with cheap tea that's subsidized by a government, it happened a few years ago with Vietnam, what happens is that nobody gets a guaranteed amount of money per kilo. So what happens is tea gardens can't pay their workers and they go under. And so what we do is we say, no way with the auction system. We are direct trade so that our workers, our growers, they know how much we're going to pay them.
So they're contracted. You are delivering.
I'm contracted. I'm buying lots of tea from them. They are producing them for me. I go and visit them. I'm going again in October and taking a group of tourists. Our friends Scott and Kathleen are going to visit my garden in August 4th or 5th. So basically, I have a very intimate relationship that's been 12 years in the running with this particular garden that I buy the primary source of all my tea from. And then I work with a couple fair trade cooperatives in India, and I've always worked with the same ones, and then the same in China, 2 fair trade cooperatives in China, then a fair trade cooperative in South Africa for my South African rooibos.
And what is the impact of what you're doing and what Zena's Tea is doing?
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
What about vis-a-vis the rest of the industry?
The rest of the industry, well, we're small, but we're a change maker. And so what happens is, like, Honest Tea, like I walked up to Seth and Barry at a food show when they just started and they were calling themselves a fair trade tea company, and they had like one fair trade SKU, and I was like, "Who are you talking like don't be greenwashing people?" You know, and I'm kind of like the little
greenwashing.
Feisty, yeah,
That's a great term.
I'm like kind of the little feisty fireball that's like fighting the good fight for real, and I'm very passionate about fair trade. So we've had a huge impact in that we believe we are so passionate about it, we've inspired others to do it, and they might be doing it now because it's a trend.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Yeah.
The money's the money, and if it's getting back and creating change, love it.
Yeah.
So we are change makers.
I want to drill back down because
you're good at that.
Well, and because look, it's very important to know where this comes from, because there's a place where everything you're talking about falls apart for other people because it isn't clean enough on the inside. They haven't really sorted out who they are, what they stand for, and how they want to promote that. It isn't generous enough. What you're talking about is a generosity. It's an internal sense of wanting to create and stimulate something as an expression, not wagging fingers necessarily or fixing, but generating, creating something as a visionary, as someone who stands for something that can be promoted out and people can pick up on it in a very generous way.
Well, it's ending poverty. It's shifting poverty to possibility.
That's it.
Is my focus in life. And that's, I started a nonprofit called Educate Her, and I'm just collecting those used laptops to get over for this first initial run. But, you know, to end poverty and shift actually alchemically fixing it and turning it into possibility, I believe is why I'm put on the earth.
There you go.
It's, you know, poverty is man-made.
Yeah.
It's like Nelson Mandela says, you know, it's up to humankind to fix it, but it's like apartheid or anything else. Poverty is completely man-made.
Yeah.
All we have to do is pay a fair price for things and not see people as machines.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all we have to do. So that's why we create products that do that. And I think business is the way to pull it off. Because when governments can't get in and do something, businesses can.
We go back. As a form, governments can't hold it.
They
Businesses with vision can
Yes.
hold miraculous things. We can
Absolutely.
blow out the form.
And I think that's what we're fixing. And my keynote on Monday is at the United States Institute of Peace, and it's the Economic Empowerment of Women is the organization. It's a nonprofit, and they're bringing Afghani and Rwandan women from war-torn areas who actually have businesses. And some of these women under Taliban rule started driving schools for women. I mean, these are gutsy women.
Yeah.
I'm really actually very intimidated to go in front of them and tell my story looks like a walk in the park compared to theirs. So what I'm focusing on for them is the peace through business, is the business through the heart.
Yes.
So if we as women hold businesses from the center of our womanhood, which is the heart, we can transform the world. And I believe that these women are, you know, they're coming to this training and this graduation, and they're going to go back to their countries, and my job, why I'm being brought in, is to ignite them to help other women start businesses, because they believe, the United States Institute of Peace believes that that's how we're going to find peace in these war-torn areas.
So this is a training as well.
Well, I have a 30-minute keynote, but yes, they've been here for 30 days training under a mentor, a woman in a similar business. So these are the cream of the crop, the women who turned in all their paperwork and worked really hard, and they're going to leave with a marketing plan and a plan to go ignite other women.
So they've been trained in a skill set and in a tool.
Yes, in the
given
tools of marketing to grow their business, and then helping to ignite other women to start businesses so that we can create peace through business. Because when women have businesses, we tend to collaborate more, and we tend to think about the children more. We tend to build infrastructure more. Typically, there's nothing against men. I love men. But
what is the response of what is the impact on men of women empowering themselves and changing communities?
There's a role reversal that men have to come to peace with, because it is happening. And I find that in the areas where men don't have jobs, there's a lot of alcoholism and a lot of problems. So what we have to do is, as we're empowering the women, we also have to empower the men.
Yeah.
And teach them, the new skills and what I love about fair trade is that there's a fund. So one man wanted to open a salon in the tea estate because they live on the tea estate. And so they call salons saloons. I think it was an accident, but it took hold. So we funded through the fair trade dollars his education to open a saloon/salon in the tea estate. Now all the women go and men go and get their hair cut. So we must empower men too. One is becoming a social worker right now, and he's going to come back to the tea estate and help with any psychological issues happening. So we empower men too.
What I'm curious about is that you are empowering women with, as you said, with tools and with skills, with action steps, because they already are so sophisticated around creating community and connections and having an embracing sense of the whole, creating environments of inclusion.
Yeah, they have wombs.
The men on the way of wombs. The men the men have a long heritage of action and will, and that has met with that has been a recipe for increasingly more struggle.
Yeah.
Precisely because we haven't had the same, we haven't managed to find the balance yet.
Which is being born right now.
And it is very much so being born right now.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm fishing for what kind of environment.
Do I feel that men and women can be in balance?
Yes, and can
in order to create miracles?
In order to create an environment where men can discover that sense of community and connection, can open saloons, and
or salons,
without defaulting back into their sort of reactivity.
I believe that the only way to do that is through spirit and through women seeing men as valuable, because I really believe that the human spirit simply wants to be seen. A thing happened today where my husband came across another baby rattler on our property, and he got it in a box and taped up the box really carefully and was taking it up to Rose Valley. And instead of me being stuck in my moment trying to get here and trying to get, I just simply stopped and I saw him and I said, "You're my hero right now. Like you did not kill the snake, and you're taking it up to a place where it can thrive. Right. That rocks. Like you're a hot shot. Like you're the best husband in the world." And that alone, just recognizing men for what they bring to the table, I truly believe is what must happen. But there is a wounding in men now that there are role reversals happening. So we need to create the miracle of recognition and love and appreciation for our men too.
Well, and I love the fact that you personalized it, because the truth is it happens in your house. Whether it happens in other people's houses is impossible to control. But to the degree it's happening in your house, it's being modeled.
I have to live it.
That's it.
I have the best marriage. Well, I know you guys have great marriages, but I have to say, and considering our tea workers,
Freeman is a heck of a rattler wrangler.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm married for 7 lifetimes, according to my Hindu priest who married us in Sri Lanka. So I'm pretty glad that I figure 7 lifetimes. I better get it right so I enjoy it. It's gonna be a long road, right?
Well, I love that. That I like that from the standpoint of. Because, of course, one of the things that we've talked about, Barnet, is tracking back how there's a lineage. And some people say it's 7 generations old. So I love the idea that your marriage, whether you're literally married for 7 lifetimes or the impact of what you create and generate as a couple on Sage, on your other children, extends forward for 7 generations.
Yeah.
That's a level of responsibility for what I'm creating beyond me. That is very personal. I mean, I love how much this is a theme for you, that you're very aware of the impact of your choices on the workers and on their families and their communities. It's extending out.
When you touch them and you see them and you hold their hands and they kiss you.
So have you been around for births and marriages yet?
Yeah.
But see, this is the point.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really...
I have, they are my baby. Those babies, every time I show my videos and I do a keynote, I cry. I love them. And in our wedding, we were married in a Lakshmi temple. She's the goddess of abundance. And I have a little Lakshmi temple on my property. And we got to ask her for anything we wanted for a solid minute during the wedding. And I got on my knees, and the only thing I could think to ask was, please give me the resources to serve these beautiful people.
Okay, so we go back to what you say earlier because you just illustrated it. What you were saying earlier is the mantra is leading with my heart is good business from your perspective.
Absolutely.
That just illustrated it.
And then you hire people to balance the books and keep the guardrails up.
Right, and the coherence of this is that it's on every level. We go. I want to rush all the way back to the beginning of the show because there's a thread here of where you weren't resistant to miracles. You were open to them. You were promoting them. You were behind them, right?
I had no other choice.
That's right. And I think along the way with all of these things, you have no other choice.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of why the miracles have played out. And what I said in the very beginning is that what is so constrictive, we call it a tyranny, is this belief structure that crunches everything down to where it's only the form. We're just focused on the outcome, and we miss the qualities that make the outcome worthwhile in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
It's a distraction.
We don't sell products. We sell hope. We sell beauty. We sell inspiration. If you see it as a product, you're just moving random material, your molecules from here to there to here to there to here to there. I mean, there are people who sit at the desk and just focus on that all day. If they don't have a context of magic, a context of impact, a context of miracles, how are they going to be inspired to keep going?
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. The world is bigger. There are more things on heaven and earth, Horatio.
Yeah.
The world is bigger than what we can see with our eyes and feel and touch and taste and smell. And when we develop a relationship with the more than that, then things happen. Then the whole of creation, as you said before, it stirs to accommodate your sense of vision and will and action. And the whole thing, the road rises to meet you.
And then who cares about the forms? We can blow them out one after another. It doesn't make any difference because it's never about them.
When the children are laughing, the tea will be great. The tea will taste better. That's what my tea estate manager says. As long as these kids are laughing.
That's fantastic. Okay, with that, we have to say goodbye to you. We will come back, but
before we go, we very quickly want to know what you're up to and where people can find out more about what you're doing.
So gypsytea.com is my tea site, and Zhena M, which my last name is Muzyka, ZHENAM.com is my coaching and my upcoming women's retreat called A Woman's Power, where we're going to dig really deep into this. Barnet's a speaker. We have some amazing speakers, and we're going to go into the rabbit hole of a limitless place, and we are going to learn how to produce businesses that really produce miracles.
Beautiful.
When is that?
That is November 9th through 11th in Ojai.
All of this will be on the Cutting Edge Consciousness website. So if you missed any of that, you can, of course, go to cuttingedgeconscious.com. Zena, thank you so much. And for those of you listening...
You guys are the best.
And for those of you, excellent, thank you. For those of you listening, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we are back on Cutting Edge Consciousness. This is Barnet Bain with my co-host, Freeman Michaels. It's good to be back after that very long break.
That was awesome.
It was awesome, wasn't it? Wasn't it great to have Zena with us?
Loved it.
So, greenwashing.
That was fantastic.
How about that?
That's a great line.
You know, it's wonderful when you hear something that goes, whoa, wow, greenwashing.
Yeah.
It says everything, doesn't it?
You know what's beautiful is that, look, what I love about what she models is it's so easy to give lip service to this, but it's a very different thing to become fully engaged. And again, it's not the expression, it's the vibratory quality. So we've had so many people, and we're so fortunate to know these people, who have fully engaged with some aspect of life. They've really, this idea of leading with one's heart and allowing that to be a huge part of the decision-making process. You know, the commonly held notion that that's foolish and that, you know, business can't operate that way. And the folks such as Zena, who have had the courage to say, no, that's how I operate, and I believe in miracles, and I'm willing to bet my life on it, that's a very special thing, because it models something that I think is very valuable.
Oh, well, I agree completely, and at the same time, I am aware that we operate out of our view of the world. We can only let in as much love and meaning and purpose as we think makes sense to us, as we can expand to understand. So I think it's magnificent to see in Zena and in many others. We're broadcasting from a studio in Ventura, down the street from Patagonia. Another amazing example of a company that is mission-driven, and that is in alignment with its mission all the way through the C-suite and all the way down to the street and all the way out to the SKUs. So as we see more and more of this, it's very heartening to realize that we are maturing, we are growing up into a greater sense of who we are, who we can be, and who we really are relative to each other. We're moving from this this capitalism defined by how can I make the most of things for myself, for my organization, for my shareholders, to a more mature capitalism that is driven, that takes into account other considerations of the bottom line. So it is still, how can I make the most for my community and
it's a larger opportunity.
As well as for myself.
Sure.
There's nothing self-abandoning or martyred about it.
No.
It simply is
good business.
It's good business, and it feels good, and it's a recognition that how the community, I cannot do better than my community. I may be able to do so for the short term, but it's at the expense of being committed and connected to it.
Oh,
I can't
so
do
valuable.
any better in my marriage if or in my family if the rest of my family feels estranged and alienated from how I hold success. That is not the highest expression of success. So we're seeing a redefinition of what it means to be a citizen and what it means to be a capitalist. And it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
And inspiring.
Totally. There is I'm using our word again. There's a biggering opportunity here. No, but this is the expanding self. This is again, you and I are aware of the constrictions. They're ours. It's okay. It's the best we've known how to do. But we're both going through a process of expanding into a larger sense of ourselves. It's really all you're talking about, and it really is on the individual level. And then the opening to possibility and the belief that something's possible in spite of the evidence that suggests that it could be hard and you shouldn't try. But
there's less evidence. There's less evidence. Once upon a time.
Well, there's more evidence such as Zena. That's the point.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah,
and there's
she's
more
good evidence right there.
There's more evidence such as Zena to me.
Yeah.
Because the walls of my imagination are a little bit more pliant, a little more flexible, a little more porous.
That's it.
And I am not as prone to shoehorn all data, all evidence into an explanation pattern that I am schlepping around in a suitcase from my past, so that everything must conform to the view of the world that I had as a child or an adult or a young man, mostly as a hand-me-down set of assumptions that I've gotten from other people. As that opens, I am more willing to and ready to see things in ways that I wasn't able to do before. But I'm also aware. I'm also aware that it is 100% personal.
Totally.
And that my worldview, I am less susceptible to making the assumption that because I see something a particular way, that other people can or do or should.
No, and you've said it many times. It's developmental. So to say that, before I knew something, I ought to have known it, it's preposterous. It's a stage of development. And it doesn't mean that we don't run through some less effective modes of operating and go, wow, that's not how I want to live my life. I'm not on my first marriage. I'm on my second marriage. First one, we tried some stuff that I don't want to do again. That was a developmental thing. I was at a certain stage and an age where, okay, that's how it played out. But going into my second marriage, there was a level of what do I really want to create? There was a sense of vision. There was a sense of myself that I wanted to promote, and the intentionality of bringing that so that we were forming something that was sacred. I love what Zena said about going forward 7 generations. That's fantastic. That's what I'm doing in this marriage. I'm extending out as something that's way beyond me, and yet I'm generating it right now in the process of making conscious decisions and promoting what it is that's really important to me. Well, that's a business model as well. It doesn't stop at relationships. It says, what is my business about? We've done this thing of, I'm not my brother's keeper, I'm my brother's keeper, I'm my brother. So the first model of business is I need to get, it's not my business what's happening with them. This is all that's my business. It's crunched down to the profits and the shareholders and wait a minute. What's going on in my factories, what's going on with my customers is my business. Wait a minute. We start blowing it out and we start saying, oh my God, it's me. It's how I'm being expressed in the world. I'm taking personal ownership. We go back to the conversation with Chip Conley. He said, I want everyone owning this company. I want everyone vested in it with a conscious sense of what they're doing there. And it's got to feed back to their own sense of personal purpose, or the whole thing doesn't work in the way it's possible that it could work.
Right. And that's okay.
Thank you. Which part is okay?
It's okay if it doesn't work.
I understand.
It's okay. It's not your preference. It's certainly not my preference.
Right.
But it's okay. It's chicken or fish.
Yeah.
I'll have the chicken.
No. You're wise to keep going back to, if it's not there yet, that's okay too.
Well, I do that because I am aware of the part of me, I'm aware of just how much of me gets a charge up around it.
I was the one getting charged up.
You just happen to be carrying the baggage today. But I am aware of how much of me gets a charge around these things, gets a charge around what I hold as, what are less empowered practices in business. What goes on in the political sphere on both sides, where one side or the other actually, and there's a whole constituency behind it, actually believes that one side knows better.
Right. That
one side has a more effective solution, and there'll be people who are listening who are on both sides of the spectrum who are going to double down on that and say, "What we do." That how you push things around on the Titanic. It certainly has some impact on the short term, but in the long term of things, the great movements of things are the currents that upon which the Titanic is swept long before it sinks under the waves. The great movements of things come from the heart.
That's it.
And so when I hear that and I get triggered, there's a part of me that says, well, it should be one way or it should be the other, and everyone comes to it in their own timing.
Yeah,
It's
I
in their own
actually, I
timing.
hear you, and I hope that I wasn't coming at it from
You
that
didn't-
energy.
you weren't.
Because here's where this gets very important for me, is levels of responsibility. I can just, again, speak personally, that I'm really, you know this, I'm in a process right now of really tracking, of really owning what is directing my choices and what part of me am I wanting to promote in the world as an expression of who I am. What do I stand for? You know, and how's that expressed? How's it expressed from a ritual standpoint? How's it expressed from a moment-to-moment choice standpoint? Where do I slip off, back into old patterning? And when
Well,
can I
it's
get back
always
on
a
course?
ritual.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that's really a huge point that you're alluding to. It's always a ritual.
Right.
When the irony is when we call something a ritual, we're simply making conscious
That's it.
a set of patterns, a particular set of dance steps that we imbue with meaning in order to shift the resonance, in order to shift the energy. So we're taking a small slice of life, and we are honoring it and making it ceremonial. We're honoring it to the degree we're willing to be changed by it and allow something to shift. We hold that out as important, and we repeat it, we repeat it, we repeat it, and we put out a frequency and put out a frequency, and eventually it lifts. But absent that conscious piece, everything else we do is the expression of a pattern of energy, of belief, thought, choice, decision, action, feeling, a pattern of choices that we do as a ritual, a lyrical ritual of behavior for almost entirely without any conscious awareness. So we are always doing a mindless ritual, and then breaking the trance with mindful rituals. Zena is an incredible example of someone who has decided to mindfully make a ritual, a ceremonial practice of being a business person and changing, making a living for herself and making a living for everyone.
That's what's inspiring to me.
Everyone. It's inspiring. It's fantastic.
And I'm aware personally how much on the sort of left-hand side, on this sort of fragmented side, how much I've abdicated my personal authority and allowed, and I just am extending my choices out. So I'm more responsible for what I create in my experience, what comes in, how I take ownership of it, and how I direct my choices. So I'm the author of my story more and more. And I love inspiring stories, and that's what I want my life to be about. And I believe it is. That's my choice today. But you go back not that many years ago, and that I wouldn't have known that I wasn't developmentally there. That wasn't going to come out of my mouth. It is today, because that's where I'm at. The expression extends beyond me. I'm just in the middle of it, you know.
But you had the vision. We had the vision then.
You're right.
And it was a
you're right.
seed that was planted
Somewhere,
that had
yes.
enough. There was something enough about the seed that was excited enough, possible enough, inviting enough to draw us toward ever more closer. It's like responding to a magnet. You feel yourself drawn into a possibility, and pretty soon you have pulled out this bubble of how you've identified yourself. It's kind of stretched out in front in the direction of that seed, and eventually, and then they touch, and that seed gets absorbed in, and now you are very much an expression of and so much more of that little seed of possibility that you held out back then.
So are you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I am grateful for it and mindful of it. And even so, when I have this inner image of like this frisbee that I'm throwing out into the future of possibility, this disc of what might be and what I might be, and what is possible for everyone, for myself, for my world, for my community. I throw that out. And even so, I think, no. At the same time as I look back, I think, my God, from where I started to where I am, why would that be any easier, any more of a stretch than from where I am to what my heart's desire is in this moment? This is already well beyond my wildest dreams of not very long ago. But it's a conditioned, habituated response, and it is... there are certain neurological patterns that support that old way of processing information, and you used the word tyranny before. It is this kind of tyranny of small living that we challenge and challenge and challenge and challenge and challenge and love and love and love until it morphs into something else.
Beautiful. With that, we are going to morph on out of here.
We're morphing.
We hope that you have enjoyed the show. We invite you to continue to tune in. We, of course, will be back next week.
We invite you to like us on our Facebook pages, too. We have neglected to remind you to like us.
And our like numbers have dropped off. What's going on?
We have been less liked than you.
All right. We are liked. You are loved. And we will
like
be back
to move on
next week. Thanks for listening.